Justin Milne, thank you for coming in.
Pleasure.
Will you be continuing as ABC chairman?
No, Leigh, I won't. The board rang me this morning and asked to have a meeting without me, to which I, of course, agreed. And at that meeting, I understand they decided to suggest to me that I might stand aside while these various investigations that have been proposed take place. But I said, well, I think actually I should resign because clearly there is a lot of pressure on the organisation, and as always, my interests, my aim has been to look after the interests of the corporation, and it's clearly not a good thing for everybody to be trying to do their job with this kind of firestorm going on. So I wanted to provide a release valve.
Is your resignation an admission that you failed to safeguard the editorial independence of the ABC?
Absolutely 100% not. In fact, I feel that the interests of the ABC have always been uppermost in my mind, and just to sort of get it on the record for you, is that there was absolutely no interference in the independence of the ABC by the government. Nobody from the government has ever rung me and told me what to do in relation to the ABC. Nobody ever told me to hire anybody, fire anybody, or do anything else. They absolutely didn't. I mean, I know that's the sort of narrative that's been running in the papers, but that absolutely never happened.
Well, let me walk you through some of the detail of what has been around this week. Did you email the Managing Director, Michelle Guthrie, and tell her to get rid of economics correspondent Emma Alberici because the government hates her?
Let me explain the context around there. Is that the role of the chairman?
Is that, sorry to interrupt, but it's just probably good for the context of the discussion to have a straight yes or no. Did you actually do that?
I'm going to come to that.
Okay.
So the role of the chairman, as really defined by the Act, is to look after the corporation and look after the sort of longevity and survival of the corporation, and in particular to look after and be responsible for editorial independence and accuracy. When there is an issue of editorial independence and accuracy, it's appropriate for the chair to be involved. That's the chair's job. It's defined. So yes, we had conversations about that, and we had conversations with multiple people, and those are sort of swirling conversations where essentially the managers and the chair at that particular time were trying to decide what shall we do here.
But in that email, though, you didn't say that you had concerns about her fairness and accuracy. You said because the government hates her.
I have never sent an email to Michelle Guthrie or anybody else which says you must sack Emma Alberici or Andrew Probyn or anybody else. This is a piece of an email which I actually haven't seen, but nevertheless, it's a piece of an email that's taken out of a context in a conversation which was a confidential conversation, and a conversation which you'd expect should be had. What do we do about this? That was what that conversation was. But I've never provided instructions that anybody should be sacked.
How did you come to understand that the government hated Alberici?
I think the whole of the Australian population understood that the government was not keen on this.
But did somebody ring you specifically about that?
Definitely not.
What do you mean by one of the reported parts of that email included the statement, we need to save the ABC, not Emma. There's no guarantee the coalition will lose the next election. What did you mean by that? I
think what I meant by that really was that, and I think it's important, is that, as I said, the role of the chair and the board is to ensure the longevity of the corporation. Now, this organisation, like all other media organisations, is under significant threat, really, from the Google, Facebooks, etc., and from the fact that technology is changing. So we at the ABC has to build digital infrastructure for the future. That's going to cost a lot of money, my estimation about $500 million, and the ABC has started a dialogue with the government and with the department to put a business case together to get $500 million of funding up front, which we will spend over 2 or 3 years, the benefits of which will come towards the end of a 10-year period. So the board has been very active in this project called Jetstream to describe and to prosecute a program of modernising the ABC and building the digital infrastructure which it will need if it's to be broadcasting content to Australians in 10 years' time.
But you seem to have linked the possibility of that occurring with Emma Alberici's continuing presence on the ABC.
Not quite so much Emma, but I mean, I think it would be naive not to understand that the relationship between the government and the ABC is a difficult one, because on the one hand the government provides the funding, on the other hand the ABC is supposed to be independent of the guy who's providing the funding. But you can't you can't be, you can't go around irritating the person who's going to give you funding again and again and again if it's over matters of accuracy and impartiality. And in fact, what happened in that particular area was that we, the ABC, found that we were not accurate nor impartial.
How often did ministers or the Prime Minister get in touch with you regarding complaints about ABC reporting?
Truthfully, not very often. You know, I know that the media has sort of characterised me as being a big mate of the Prime Minister, but whilst Malcolm Turnbull was Prime Minister, I think I might have seen him a half a dozen times or something like that. Not very often, and I can tell you he was not on the phone to me saying, I want you to do this, or I want you to do that, or I think this, or I think that. All of Malcolm's views about the ABC were well ventilated in the press and in the Parliament. When
you said that they occasionally did ring you, when you had those conversations, what was the nature of them?
Oh, they were about things like Jetstream, really. I mean, Jetstream is the principal conversation that, on behalf of the board, I put on the agenda with the government.
Is it accurate that Malcolm Turnbull rang you in a fury over some of Emerald Barichi's reporting?
No.
When politicians would ring you to complain about ABC reporting, how did you respond?
Well, they didn't ring me. Truthfully, they didn't ring me to complain. If they had complaints, they lodged their complaints. It's well known that Minister Fifield has lodged a number of complaints, and that's appropriate. He's allowed to.
I know you said that you never said that anyone needed to be sacked, just for the interest of clarity, because there's been a lot of reporting around this week. Did you have a conversation with Michelle Guthrie at any stage about your view that she needed to get rid of the ABC's political editor, Andrew Probyn, that the words you used were, you have to shoot him?
No, I don't remember saying that at all. But what I certainly would have done is have had a conversation with not only Michelle but with other members of the leadership team about what I'll call the Probyn issue. So Andrew Probyn also found himself in hot water with the government. We investigated that and made certain the ABC got to certain positions on that. But again, it's just not possible to imagine a world in which the chair or a board member is not involved in matters which go to the heart of their obligations under the legislation. They have to be.
Is that the role of the chair, though, or is that not the role of the managing director?
Well, it's the role of the managing director, clearly, to execute. The managing director is an executive there to execute stuff. But the role of the chair is to be involved in those discussions and to help to ensure that the interests of the corporation are looked after. And in an environment where the board was losing its confidence in the managing director, that made it even more necessary for me to be involved.
By raising things like the availability of Jetstream funding and the government's view of the ABC in the context of these editorial discussions, did you, as the chairman, breach a wall, breach your role, I guess, to be the wall between politicians wanting to influence the reporting of the ABC and the ABC's editorial independence?
No, nobody has told me that I am supposed to be a wall. I think more what I'm likely to be is a conduit. You know, the government is a fundamentally important, stakeholder in the ABC, and it's necessary, and I think it's the role of the board to be a conduit so that we all know, so the left hand knows what the right hand's doing, and we understand how people are feeling about things. Now, that doesn't mean, and people leap to a conclusion there and say, oh, well, there you go, independence breached. But I don't believe that's the case at all. I believe it's unthinkable that a chair would not be involved.
Why did the board sack Michelle Guthrie?
We've sort of ventilated that pretty well, and it's because we did lose our confidence in her ability to lead the corporation.
Why?
Well, there's a lot of small pieces, and I don't want to go to those small pieces because each of those small pieces is not the reason, in a slightly complicated and difficult to explain way. Those small pieces led us to the conclusion that she was the wrong leader for this organisation. She'd lost the faith of the folks. She was not leading the corporation in the way that we felt that the corporation should be led.
But what was it about her leadership style that you thought was not what you wanted?
I think I've discussed that already on the record, and I don't really propose to go there again. So I don't want to make this a process of criticising Michelle Guthrie. Michelle did many good things while she was at the corporation, but the board, assesses the performance of a CEO. It's their job to do that, probably their most important job. And The board made that assessment over a long period of time and came to the conclusion that she wasn't the right leader for us going forward.
But Michelle Guthrie, in her own statement, says that it's not really clear to her what she did wrong. The Australian taxpayer funds the ABC. Don't they deserve a better explanation than, oh, well, we just felt that she wasn't delivering what we wanted, which is essentially what you've offered?
Well, I feel disinclined to provide any more than that, even though people, when there's a media storm like this, would love to have juicy details.
Is it because you feel legal action?
But I'm not going to provide it. And of course, there are two things at stake here. One is that Ms. Guthrie has indicated that she may become litigious. So one needs to be careful in those circumstances. And the other is that I don't want to damage Michelle in any way at all. I don't want to sit here and ventilate all of the things that we didn't like about her leadership. In the end, there were many things that led us to the view that we needed a different leader.
When did you or the board first make Michelle Guthrie aware of your concerns about her performance?
I'm afraid I can't tell you the exact date, but I'm going to say 4 to 6 weeks ago with a very serious meeting and a very serious letter that we provided her. What
did the letter specify you wanted to see done differently?
It specified a range of different issues in relation to her leadership, which I'm not prepared to go into, I'm sorry.
And then when did the board, after that meeting, then actively discuss her removal?
On multiple occasions, and we asked Michelle to come back to us with a plan to address the issues that we'd discussed, and which she did, and the board decided that the way that she proposed to address those issues was insufficient.
How effectively was Michelle Guthrie managing the ABC's budget?
You're taking me to, and good on you for trying, but you're taking me to specifics, and I really don't want to go there. I just don't think it's appropriate. I don't want to be damaging, and I don't want to create litigation. The ABC's budget is in fine shape. Our numbers are shortly to be released, and they've been checked off by the auditor, by an independent auditor, by the ANOP, and there's nothing wrong with our budget at all. It's in great shape.
There was a controversial staff morale initiative that began called the Larry Project. Was the board aware of that initiative before it started?
No.
And what did you think of it?
Not much.
Is it accurate that the board was concerned that Michelle Guthrie was missing in action too much of the time?
Michelle's got a busy job, and she was in many different places at many different times, and I think some of the staff formed the view that she was a hard person to find. Did she do anything inappropriate? Definitely not.
Did it concern you that she missed an appearance before a Senate estimates hearing?
That was a concern. It was unfortunate, but the problem here is that there are a multiplicity of things which ultimately, as I tried to explain, add up to is this the right leader for us?
Let me ask you about a tabloid newspaper report this morning to give you a chance to address it. Did you refer to Michelle Guthrie as the Mrs.?
I really don't think I did. I don't call people the Mrs., and I have zero recollection of ever doing that. I don't know why I would. I mean, I don't think of her as the Mrs. At all.
Do you call female staff chicks or babes or anything of that nature?
I've used the word, not babes, but I've used the word chicks in relation to not female staff, but to friends and people that I know. And I think I do that with people that I like. I don't do it all the time, but I think I do it to sort of try to relax people. I try to be friendly with people, but I certainly don't use that word in a derisive or denigrating way. And if it's caused offence to people, then I do apologise for that, because that's not my intention at all. It's colloquial, it's kind of matey. That's the context in which I use it, and in which I'm going to guess probably you do as well. So many people do.
The ABC now is entering a period of some serious instability because it's lost its managing director and the chairman of its board.
Yeah.
What do you think are the most significant challenges facing the ABC at this juncture?
Well, I think the ABC needs to keep calm and carry on, and that's the reason that I'm resigning, to provide a safety valve or a pressure release valve to allow them to do that, because I think that this kind of ridiculous media storm around me and Michelle is obviously not helpful. So first thing is keep calm and carry on. Second thing is do the great stuff that you do, because the ABC is a national treasure. It's been one for 83 years. It'll be one, I hope, for another 83 years. But the ABC does have to walk straight up to and stare in the face this modernisation question. Is the ABC in 10 years' time will be very different from the ABC that we have today. This ABC that we're sitting into isn't that different from the ABC in the 1980s, but the ABC that we're going to find in 10 years will be a very different beast.
Do you accept that the revelations of the past week have damaged the ABC's reputation and cast a shadow over its editorial independence from government?
No, I don't think so. In fact, there's a view that I could take to say, in some ways, and you will think this is a strange thing for me to say, in some ways there's something good about this. This is sort of democracy in action. This is debate in action. And what have we been debating? We've been debating whether the ABC is independent from government or not, and I'll tell you it is. And then we've been debating at a sort of slightly more arcane level, what's the role of a chairman, in particular a chairman of the ABC and the board, in relation to the executive? And I think that those are both good debates to have. In the end, despite all of the sort of allegations and excitement, the board and the chair were never directed by government, number one. Number two is the management was never directed by the board, and the proof of that, just to observe, is that both of the people whom I'm supposed to have demanded that they be sacked, which I didn't, are both still employed. In fact, what happened was meetings were had, discussions were had, a plan was come up with, findings were made by Alan Sunderland and the Editorial group, small disciplinary matters were attended to. I'm trying to find the right words there, and we've all moved on. And both of the people in question remain employed. And truthfully, I have great respect for them, especially Andrew Probyn.
Justin Milne, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.